العلي العظيم. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل، نعم المولى ونعم النصير. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله قاسم الجبارين مبير الظالمين مضيك للحاربين، والصلاة والسلام وتحية والإكرام على النبي الأمي المكي المدني الهاشمي الذي سمي في السماوات بأحمد وفي الأراضين بأبي القاسم محمد. وعلى أهل بيته الأطيبين الأطهرين، سيما أولهم أمير المؤمنين وآخرهم بقية الله في الأراضين. روحي وأرواح العالمين لتراب مقدمه الفداء، ورحمة الله على محبيهم ومواليهم وشيعتهم أجمعين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم ملعونين. أما بعد، قال المعصوم عليه السلام: السلام عليكم يا أهل بيت النبوة وموضع الرسالة ومختلف الملائكة ومحبط الوحي ومعدن الرحمة وخزان العلم ومنتهى العلم ومعدن الرحمة وأصول الكرم. For the happiness of Hazrat Zahra Marziyah, for the enlightenment of the graves of your marhumin, of the graves of the Shuhada, Ulama and Siddiqeen, for the safety of the followers of Ahlulbayt around the world, and for the safety and the hastening of the reappearance of Hazrat Baqiyatullahi al-A'zam Arwahun al-Fida, please recite your loudest salawat. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who is Rahman and the one who is Rahim. Our discussions have been centered around Ziarat Jamiah Kareerah of Imam al-Hadi salawatullah wa salamuhu alayh, with the intention of trying to gain an understanding of Ahlulbayt and the wilayah and the position of Ahlulbayt within this physical realm or within this universe. What the purpose of Ahlulbayt, what the maqam of Ahlulbayt is, the Imam has beautifully described it within the lines of this ziyarah. And each and every single line alludes to much more depth than is what a person usually sees. And this happens with many of the du'as and many of the sayings of Ahlul Bayt, that they have multiple layers to them, multiple levels of understanding to them, but yet we don't find the time to sit, to ponder, to try and contemplate, to reach the depth of what is being said. You know, we'll go over certain lines within Dua Kumail, like one of the lines that I mentioned last night. We'll go over them, we'll go and we'll read them, but won't ponder over them. What is this distinction that Amir al-Mu'mineen is making between hell, and he's saying, even if you were to throw me into hell, I'm going to call out, Ya Ghayat al-Amal al-Arifin. Or in Munajat Sha'baniyah, he's saying, even if you were to throw me into hell, أعلنت أهلها أني أحبك, that I would announce to the people that dwell within hell that I still love you. You know, this ability to speak in hell, but then yet in Dua Kumail he said, فَكَيْفَ أَصْبِرُ عَلَى فِرَاقِكَ, that how will Ali bear separation from you? Meaning that there is something worse than hell, that there is something that is far scarier than hell, and that is that firaq, that separation from God, that proverbial delete button where the person now no longer is able to benefit in the slightest from the mercy of God. Because the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all encompassing. It surrounds us. Every aspect, every breath that we take, everything that we see within the universe, every leaf that falls, every blade of grass that grows, is because of the mercy of God. It is because of that mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so then, in order to understand the maqam of Ahlul Bayt, we have chosen to look at this Ziarat Jamiah of Imam al-Hadi. We recite it in the Haram of Imam Rada alayhi salam, and it's recommended to be recited at all the other Aimma as well, where you're addressing Ahlul Bayt. And there are lines within this that have so much depth. You know, at the end of the ziyarah, we're saying things like, أو أهل البيت كنتم إن ذكر الخير كنتم أوله وأصله وفرعه ومعدنه ومعواه ومنتهاه. That's O Ahl al-Bayt, wherever there is any mention of khair, any mention of good, you are its origin, you are its branches, you are its roots, you are its fruits. You, Ahl al-Bayt, are the pinnacle and the height of all that is good. Now, what does it mean? Why is it that Imam is addressing or introducing Ahlul Bayt in this way? All of these require a lecture in and of themselves, and inshallah, probably that line won't be discussed here in Houston. Possibly it may come up in the LA series on Ziarat Jamiah. Because it appears a lot later. So we're going through this very systematically, looking at each line within the ziyarah as to what it is that the Imam is saying Ahlul Bayt are. And over the last couple of days, we've looked at the idea of Mawdi' al-Risala, that you are the seat of the divine message of Allah. What it means to be the place from where the divine message of Allah emanates. And I don't want to go over it. I'm conscious, of course, that this is like very much a graveyard shift. After everyone's eaten, you know, this is like where the food coma and everything sets in. And especially if we're not, especially if we've overeaten as well, then it makes a lot more issues for us staying awake and then doing ibadat as well late at night. This is also one of the things to note, that food plays a huge effect on our spirituality, and I've spoken about this here before, but especially following the opening of the fast, if we overeat, then it becomes very difficult to recite the Salat al-Layl, to recite your dua Abu Hamza Thumali, to recite dua al-Sahar, and all of these things. We have 30 days. Let us try and maximize as much of those 30 days as we can. Try and do various a'mal that we wouldn't do usually. And the way to give ourselves strength to do that is to reduce the amount that we eat at the time of iftar, and maybe stagger what we eat and when we eat it, in order to stop that lethargy overtaking our bodies, and stop us from becoming lazy when it comes to the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Other ways are obviously reducing meat, the consumption of meat, which becomes very difficult for us in Shahr Ramadan, because we crave meat all day long, and then when it comes to iftar time, now that's all I'm going to eat. The vegetables never get touched. Everyone wants to go and eat the meat, and that hardens the heart, the spiritual heart. It stops a person from being able to form that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The tears don't fall as readily from the eyes of the individual that accustoms themselves to eating meat a lot. You find that the people who eat a lot of meat, they struggle to cry within dua. They struggle to cry within masaib. They struggle to cry when they're contemplating about their relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Things that happen around the world, dhulm that happens on other human beings, it doesn't affect them as much as it would had they reduced their intake of meat. And then obviously the medical professionals can tell you about the effects it has on your heart and all the other things. But spiritually, meat has a massive impact. So with being able to concentrate, being able to focus on our ibadat, especially in these nights, will enable us to actually gain something from this holy month. I said on the first night that the very least a person can achieve in this month by just fasting, staying away from that which is haram, and fulfilling their wajibat, the very least that the Holy Prophet says a person can achieve is the forgiveness of every single one of their sins. So if that is the very least that a person can achieve, imagine then what it is that they're able to achieve if they were to focus their minds and put effort into um, reaching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the way to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of the easiest ways to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is through the path of Ahlulbayt, through using the wasila of Ahlulbayt, and to be able to understand the integral nature of Ahlulbayt. What does it mean to be Ma'din al-Risala? You know, Ahlulbayt are the seat of the divine mission, that the place from where it originates. ومختلف الملائكة, you know, وموضع الرسالة ومختلف الملائكة, this constant coming and going of the malaika towards the A'immah. And we've spoke about that as well, that how integral it is that every single command of Allah that occurs upon the earth, every single droplet of rain that falls, every single leaf that falls, every single tree that grows, every single amr of Allah that is initiated upon the earth, Amirul Mu'mineen says not a single amr would take place or will take place upon the earth except that the Malik who has been ordained to do it either bring that droplet of rain or form that cloud or move those winds or drop that lightning or bring the sound of the thunder, except that they come to me, Ali, to ask for permission to do so. It is only when I have given them permission to do so does that act occur, does that act initiate upon the earth. And then after me they shall go to my son Al-Hasan, and after him they will go to his brother Hussein, and then they will go to the 9 Imams from the lineage of Hussein, and the 12th of them is the Qa'im of Ali Muhammad. Said that they are mukhtalif al-malaika, that the place where the malaika constantly come and go. وَمَحْبَطَ الْوَحِي, and they're the place of the revelation of God. وَمَعْدِنَ الرَّحْمَةِ, and they're the place, they're the point, they're the origin of the mercy of God within this physical realm. They're the manifestations of that mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمُنْتَهَى الْحِلْمِ, and they are the foremost in forbearance, in patience. And we gave examples of all of these yesterday. And so we don't want to go back into them because I don't want to obviously take up too much of your time, being the graveyard shift and everything. The point I want to look at today is the part that Imam then refers to Ahlul Bayt as وَأُصُولُ الْكَرَمِ. Says, O Ahlul Bayt, you are the foundations of magnanimity. Usul is the plural for the word asl. The word asl means roots or foundation. The purpose of a root on a tree is what? To give it stability, to bring nutrients up to it. It continues to give strength to the trunk and the branches and the fruit. Everything relies upon the root. If the roots are damaged, the tree is useless. It no longer is able to stand up. It will wither away and die. A foundation in a building, if the foundations of a building are corrupt, if they are weak, that building that you build upon it shall crumble, shall fall. The first word that the Imam says that Ahlul Bayt are the asl, are the usul, they are the roots of karam. Second word, karam. Karam means, one of the meanings of it is magnanimity. Generally people mistakenly translate it as generosity, but actually it isn't. The person who is kareem is generous, but the generous person is not necessarily kareem. Karama, kareem or karam is magnanimity, kindness, friendliness, noble heartedness. These are all the different words that point towards karam. It is far more than just a person being generous. The kareem is the characteristic that is the most sought after. Anything that is very sought after, anything that is chased after, anything that is regarded very highly will be addressed as kareem. So certain stones, your aqiq, your firozas, your durr najafs, and all of these stones that have certain references within the narrations are referred to generally as ahjar kareem, the magnanimous stones, or the stones of magnanimity, because they're sought after. They have an inherent value beyond the price that is attached to them. The kareem in itself is not a characteristic. Being kareem in and of itself is not a characteristic. Rather, it is made up of various different characteristics. Like I said to you, the kareem is generous, but the generous person is not necessarily kareem. The kareem is truthful, but the truthful person is not necessarily kareem. Kirama is the culmination of all that is good. Every single good characteristic, if you find it in one place, you address that person as kareem. And the Imam is saying that Ahlulbayt usulul karam. This karama, it's not standalone. The difference between generosity and karama or kareem and a person that is, for example, jawad, the difference between it is that the generous person gives something with the hope of return on their investment. They will do something with the hope of being recompensed for that which they have done. They will lend someone money because they hope that it will return to them. Maybe with interest, or maybe more, or maybe because this person will then consider them to be a good individual. So they always give with the hope of return on investment, but the kareem is that individual that gives with never even thinking that they will have a return on their investment. They give without hope of return. The generous person gives, but still thinks of, maybe I'll get something in return, or I'll have this returned to me. The kareem gives and forgets about it. Our worship, when we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we think we've done this great favor to God, we worship Him in the hope of good health, in the hope of increase of rizq, in the hope that our children will be saved, in the hope for various different things, different problems. I want a return on my investment. I'm not just going to worship Him for the sake of it. I go on ziyarat for a purpose. I don't just go on ziyarat for the sake of the visitation. Now I go on ziyarat because I have some sort of problem, some sort of ailment, some sort of difficulty in my life. So the first thing I do when I reach the dari is start complaining about my problems. I start worrying about my problems. Start talking about my issues. I want something in return. We worship Allah for everything, to sort all of our problems. Never once have I turned around to myself and said, you know what, I want to worship Allah just to get closer to Him. Never once have I said, let me place my head in sajda and say, that this is only for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because that's the height of ibadat. That I don't look for a return on the sajda that I do. I don't look for a return. I don't hope for heaven. I don't hope not to burn in hell. This is a very high level. Agha Rajab Ali Khayat is one of the Urafa that passed in the last century. He says, after 40 years of doing Tazkiyat al-Nafs, 40 years of purifying myself and abstaining from haram and having achieved many maqamat, many being able to, having achieved many stations and being able to view many realities, said one day I said to myself, let me just pray, but this time I won't ask for much. I won't ask for anything, in fact. I'm just going to pray to Allah just for the sake of Allah. Qurbatan ila Allah. You know, this time I don't want anything. I don't want anything from Allah. I'm just going to pray because I believe Him worthy of worship. Says after 40 years of doing this tazkiyat an-nafs, of staying away from sin, having achieved various maqam, I thought to myself one day, why don't I just pray to Him for the sake of praying to Him? Because I believe Him worthy of worship. He says, I prayed that night in the Alim al-Ru'ya, in the dream state. He says, I heard a voice coming to me. He says, Rajab Ali Khayat, chara dir amadi. What took you so long? Says, what took you so long to realize that this is the height of ibadat? This is the pinnacle of worship. That you worship Him not for anything except that you consider Him worthy of worship. And the Kareem, when the Kareem worships, he worships God solely because he knows God is worthy of worship. And if he asks for anything, it is only the removal of something that will stop him from getting closer to God. So when he prays and asks, he may ask for the disease of miserliness to be removed from him so that he can get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the Kareem. Doesn't want to ask for rizq, doesn't want to ask for shifa'ah, doesn't want to ask for any sort of problems to be removed. No. Prays solely to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Prays solely to be able to witness the realities, to fall in love with God. So when we recite this ziyarah and we address Ahlulbayt as usul al-karam, that Ahlulbayt, you are the roots of magnanimity. You are the essence, you are the origins, you are the foundations upon which magnanimity stands. If magnanimity, if nobleness, if noble-heartedness was a building, you Ahlulbayt would be its foundations. If it was a tree, you Ahlulbayt would be its roots, from which the magnanimous people gain their inspiration, they gain their strength, they gain their insight. We address Ahlulbayt as usulul karam. And Ahlulbayt are the height of karam within the creation of Allah. Imagine an entity, imagine personalities for whose sake the world eats, but yet they go hungry. Imagine personalities out of there, because of them the world eats, because of them the world exists, because of them Jibreel flies, because of them Israel takes lives, because of them بِيُمْنِهِ رَزَقَ الْوَرَى وَبِوُجُودِهِ ثَبَتَتِ الْأَرْضُ وَالسَّمَاءُ. Through their existence does the world receive its sustenance, and through their continued existence exist the heavens and the earth. They are usul al-karam. These are individuals that even their killers, their oppressors, those that did dhulm upon them, those that sought to kill them, those that sought to oppress them, those that sought to take away their rights, Ahlulbayt have the power to stop them, have the power to destroy them, have the power to save themselves, but yet knowing that it is the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they place aside their own desires and place themselves under the knives. They place themselves in front of the poison, knowing that it is the will of God. This is why they are usul al-karam. Ahlulbayt are those individuals that even within their own homes, there is hunger. In their own homes, there isn't anything to eat. And they're fasting for 3 days. And the only thing that they have is that dried barley bread. وَيَطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ. And they come to the door, the orphan, the prisoner, and whatever they have, they give. For what? إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. We give to you for the sake of Allah. We don't want your thanks. We don't want anything in return. We give it to you for the sake of Allah. Ahlulbayt are those Kareem individuals that the day that she gets married and the bride is in love with her bridal clothing, but yet when Zahra comes home and the beggar knocks at the door, that very same bridal clothing that was worth so much to the bride, every bride in every society, in every culture, holds her bridal dress very dear to her. Everything goes into that. Now as the beggar comes to the door of Zahra, nothing else to give, Zahra gives them that bridal dress. This is Kareem. The Kareem is the one that if he's wearing a priceless ring that has been given in war booty to him, that very same day distributed amongst the Muslims, he gets given the most priceless of rings as a gift from the war booty. The Kareem is the one that even in the state of ruku, when someone comes to ask, he extends his hands out and says, take it. The Kareem is that individual that swallows his anger when someone disrespects him, and the heights that he reaches is that his single strike on that day is أفضل من عبادة الثقلين. It is greater than all of the worship of all the jinn and men that have ever existed, that will ever exist. This is Kareem individuals. When we address Ahlul Bayt as Usulul Karam, this is what we're talking about. In the Ziarat of the 12th Imam on Friday, when we say you are Kareemun min awladil kiram, that you are the Kareem from the children of those that were Kareem. Magnanimity at a point, at a place that an individual cannot comprehend themselves. And the Shia too should be like this. That the Kareem no longer looks at themselves, but they look for the benefit of others. There's a story from Ayatollah Sayyid Jawad Amuli. He says that one day I was sitting at home and someone knocks at my door at night. And I open the door and I find that it is the khadim, the worker, the servant of Marhum Ayatollah Bahrul Ulum. He says that Ayatollah Bahrul Ulum is calling you to the home. He says it's urgent. He says, I'm not going to eat my food until you come to the house. So he says, late at night. So he says, I got ready and I go straight to the house of Ayatollah Bahrul Ulum. Says, when I walk in and I sit down, Ayatollah Bahrul Ulum looks at me. He says, do you not fear God? Do you not have any shame? He says, I don't understand. What do you mean? He says that your mu'min neighbor has been eating the lowest form of dates all week because he does not have any food to buy himself. He doesn't have any money to buy himself some decent food. And for a whole week, he has been eating the lowest type of, the cheapest type of dates, a handful a day. Him and his whole family have been eating it. And today when he went to go and buy from the date seller some more of those cheap dates, the date seller said, no, your loan or the debt that you have accrued has reached this much. You've accrued this amount of debt. Says out of shame and embarrassment, he walked away, and now him and his family, they sit at night, hungry, nothing to eat. Says to him, he says, I didn't know. No, I know. He says, I know you didn't know. Had you known and not gone to their aid, I would have called you a Yahudi. But the fact is that you did not know. Now, what is it that you will do? He says, take this food that I have. I've had it made for them. Take it to their house. Go inside the house. Say to them, I have made you food. Don't mention me. The Ayatollah Bahrul Ulum is saying, don't mention me. Say, I have brought food for you. I want you to sit with me and eat this food. And while they are eating and busy in eating, you take this bag of money and slide it underneath the rug of their room. And it says, go now. And only until you've told me that they've eaten and you come back, and leave even the utensils, the cutlery, the pottery, everything. Leave it all with them. Let them keep it. Don't bring it back. But I'm waiting for you. I'm not going to eat until you've come back and told me that they've eaten. He says, I went to the house. I knocked at the door. I said to them that I've made some food today and I wish that you guys would join me in eating it. So they take him inside the house. So he opens up the food, he gives it to them, and they say, where did this food come from? He says, no, I made it for you. He says, no, it's not possible. He says, because you're an Arab and this is not the food of an Arab. Arabs don't make their food in this way. Says, you tell us where this food came from or else we're not going to eat it. So he says, I retell the whole story to them of what Ayatollah Bahrul Ulum said to me, and that he's not going to eat, and that he knew that you had incurred so much debt at the date seller. He says, how odd. He says, no one knew about my state. I hadn't mentioned it to anyone. I didn't tell anyone about the difficulties that I was in. And yet, Ayatollah Bahrul Ulum knew. And he said, this is a Kareem individual. Those that claim to be the followers of Ahlulbayt, that level of generosity, that level of that magnanimity within ourselves, it needs to increase. That it's just not from one angle. Ahlulbayt are usulul karam. Ahlulbayt are the roots of magnanimity, are the roots and the foundations of nobleness. It isn't just one side. So when we recite this ziyarah, we're saying Assalamu alaykum Ahlulbayt an-Nubuwah, and we're addressing them as usulul karam. Know what depth there is in the words of the Imam. That now when I go and I address the Imam of my time, and I ask him and I tell him about my problems, know that he understands, know that he knows, know that he will help. But I need to have the iman. I need to have that faith. The Kareem individual is one whose focus is solely upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is solely upon the happiness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if he must give his son like Ali Akbar. Even if he must give a son like Aliun Asghar, even if he's given his companions and he's given those that are dearer to him, those that he loves, those that are beloved to him, he's given them all in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. With over 300 wounds on his body, he looks towards the heavens. Ilahi taraktul khalqa turran fi hawaka wa itamtul ayala likay araka wa in katta'tani bil hubbi irban irba الطلب لمال الفؤاد إلى السواك. My Lord, I've left the whole of creation for your sake. I've orphaned my children so that I may see you. And even if the swords were to come and cut me to pieces, my heart would turn to none but you. They are usulul karam. Ahlulbayt are the roots of magnanimity, that they give their own lives for this cause, but only look for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you want to see the height of karam outside of Ahlul Bayt, then look no further than Abu Fadl al-Abbas. Abbas has given everything for the sake of his Imam, his own desires placed aside for the sake of his Imam. Abbas has looked solely to please the Imam of his time, that now when he goes out to fight and he fights his way to the banks of Furat and he enters that water, he holds the water in his hand, attempting, thinking maybe to drink it, then addresses himself, Ya nafs min ba'd al-Husayn huni. My nafs, O self, what pleasure is there left in this world after Hussein? Will you drink this water while your master drinks the syrup of death? Abbas throws the water back. He fills the bag of water, places it on his arm and begins to ride back. You hear it every Muharram. They cut the right arm of Abbas. He cries out, Wallahu in qata'tum yamini inni uhami abadan an dini. That even if you were to cut the right arm of Abbas, Abbas would never stop defending this religion. This is the height of karam. They cut the left arm of Abbas, but Abbas continues to go to take the water until that arrow pierces the water bag of Abbas. Now they say as the water began to pour upon the ground, فَوَقَفَ الْعَبَّاسِ Abbas stood. Abbas didn't stop his horse. 400 archers took aim at Abbas. Arrows striking the body of Abbas from every side. As Abbas bends forward in order to remove an arrow from his eye, they say one man came from behind with an iron bar. He struck the head of Abbas with such force that the head of Abbas split open. Now as Abbas falls from the horse to the ground, he calls out to his brother, Ya akhi adrik akhak. Oh brother, come to the aid of your brother. When Abbas calls out, Abu Abdullah cries, Alan inkasara dhahri. When he reaches the body of Abbas, they say that Abbas's soul had departed his body. Imam Hussein stood by the head of Abbas. He said, Abbas, that eye that slept knowing that you were alive today will stay awake out of fear. And that eye that stayed awake out of fear knowing that you were alive shall sleep peacefully tonight. Abbas, Imam stands by the body of his brother. Then the narration says, فَبَكَ الْحُسَيْنِ بُكَاءً شَدِيدًا. Hussein cried so loudly that we had never heard him cry at anyone's body in such a way. على لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive our sins. Pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive the sins of our parents. Oh Allah, those of our parents that are alive, give them long lives. Those of our parents that have left this world, give them a place next to Ali Muhammad in Jannah. Oh Allah, those who are ill, give them shifa'ah. Those who are in debt, clear their debts. Those who are in education, make them successful. Oh Allah, keep our ulama and our maraji at the head of our institutions. Oh Allah, hasten the reappearance of the Imam of our time and allow us to be amongst his true muntadhirin, his true awaiters, for the acceptance of these du'as and any other du'as that the brothers and sisters have brought. Please recite 3 loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. السلام عليك يا سيدي ومولاي يا رسول الله. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله. السلام عليك وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله الآخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا غريب الغرباء وبعيد المدى السلطان أبو الحسن علي بن موسى الرضا. السلام عليك وعلى آبائك السبعة وعلى أبنائك الأربعة وعلى أختك فاطمة المعصومة ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا سيدي ومولاي يا صاحب العصر والأمر والزمان، سيدي الأمان 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 من فتنة الزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان. اللهم أرني الطلعة الرشيدة وغرة الحميدة، وكن ناظري بنظرة مني إليه، وعجل فرجه وسهل مخرجه، وجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره والمستشهدين تحت لوائه. السلام عليك أهل بيت النبوة جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.